Organization is like a secret weapon. I have this tool that I've created. It's a Google spreadsheet, and the title right now is Network. And it has like 25 sheets in the spreadsheet. They're for each type of person I know. So there's a sheet for investors. There's a sheet for funded startup founders who've raised at least $500,000. And I have name, email, location, company, market, like consumer, social network for stuff, right? Whatever. And then I have some interesting columns. I've got a column for connection strength, and it goes from -1, which is a strained relationship, to 0, they don't really know you exist, to 1, like you've interacted before, that you're on their radar. 2, like there's their colleague, there's a contact, there's responsiveness. 3, they're your friend. 4, they've got your back. Like brotherly love, right? And so I rank all these contacts by how, like, the connection strength, and then I've got a power rank, which is like, if I invited them to a dinner with other people, how would the other people perceive their relative, like, status, influence, power? Like, 1 being they're a legend. 2, they're a legend someday, right? 3 being like they have a shot. They're solid. 4 being like they could have a shot, could be solid. 5 being like they're very they're at sort of like they're worth following. And then so connection strength, power rank, and then priority, like basically relevance to my priorities. So if you look at this long list of people and you have a set of priorities, which A, B, or C, are they A, like very relevant to your priorities right now and you need to be interacting with them a lot? B, not really. C, or B, yes, but like not super urgent. And then C, like no, just stay in touch for now. And then like there's some columns around like how much money have they raised, right? Which is just also a good indicator of like where they're at. On the investor list, it's like if they're an angel, what is their check size? And then if they're a fund, like what is the fund size? And I think you have Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Gmail, contacts, address book. None of these do a really good job. They're actually like horrible ways to stay organized. Like they're just not built for the power user. So going through the effort of like just putting the legit people into like this spreadsheet that you manage, and like I have a list of people I know in various government trade and investment offices worldwide. I've got a list of people I know in the press. I've got a list of people I know who are at technology companies, but they're not CEOs. They're just various roles. I got people I know at brands, right? So like if I didn't have these, like that spreadsheet, like it's like such a weapon. It's so helpful. For example, a friend of mine shows up in London, and I'm able to like not introduce her to like, and she says like, hey, I know you know people here, could you make some introductions? And I have to think like, who do I know in London? Okay. Instead I can be like, oh, I know these 20 people in London. Like, let me email them all like at once and not even have to think about like, did I miss anyone? No, I know I didn't miss anyone. I'm there. And like, that's really helpful to that person, right? They hit the ground running, and all of a sudden, like, you've just made their time amazing. A friend of mine is like, she's a VC, and she's like, we really want to host a party for funded startup founders who have enterprise businesses. Done, right? Here are my 10 people, right? A friend of mine's like, I really want to go talk to investors who invest in this space. Here are everyone I know, and it's useful. It's really useful. I do that. I also religiously get to zero inbox. I have, like, at the end of every day, nothing in my inbox. And when people, like, I tell that to people, they're shocked, and I'm shocked that they're shocked, because, like, how do you function without it? Actually, I play a game. The game I play is not only can I get to zero inbox, but can I always be sending more emails than I'm receiving? Because I think if you're just like responding to whatever you're receiving, there's like a half-life, right? Like, you know, let's just say in the beginning of all time, right, you sent like 100 emails out, and then like you got 75 responses, and then you responded to the responses, then you got 50 back, and then and eventually you get to zero, right? I want that like not to be degrading, but to be accelerating, and I want like more bandwidth. You know, there's processes you have to create this bandwidth. I don't have a personal assistant or EA. I've tried that multiple times, and every single time they just get in the way. I suppose there's a world in which you have, like Tony Stark has Pepper Potts, somebody who's like, you know, probably should be getting paid more than you, because they're just like, they literally are living your life, and you're probably gonna end up sleeping with them, right? Because like, you know, you can't possibly, like the level of support I would need from like, you know, an executive assistant would end up requiring them to like so live my life that like they are like on all the time, like responding to emails in the middle of the night, blah, blah, blah. And that's just not like realistic or feasible.
How do you find balance? We all have 24 hours in a day.
Do we? Most people don't have 24 hours in a day. Most people have like 5 hours in a day. Just most people don't like, are just so inefficient. I don't have 24 hours in a day. I'm lucky if I get 10. And of those 10, how many am I heads down working? I try to spread out my all-nighters. Like if I have, you know, one night a week where I get like 3 or 4 hours of sleep, I end up getting so much done that night that I stay up till like 3 or 4 a.m. Because there's nobody calling and there's no emails coming in. And I'm able to like get a lot of heads down work. I really segment my work into heads down and heads up. Heads up is meetings, like interacting with other people. Heads down is like in a spreadsheet, or like you know, sending lots of emails but like not, or like working on like a report, or like creating something, doing research, reading, and writing. So these are very different modes for me. And so there's a couple of things. My friend TJ Sassani, who's the CEO of Zozy, was just telling me yesterday that he has this thing that he does, which I think is part of the reason why he's been able to have such longevity as a CEO. Like most CEOs just like can only do one stage, and then they get to another stage and all the problems they're dealing with are very different than the last stage, and then they need to replace the CEO. But there's huge value in somebody who's able to like keep like learning the problems of different phases and growing with the company. And the only way to do that without burning out over time is like doing things like he does, which is every quarter he'll go and like take a week and work remotely, like Friday to Monday, right? Like Friday of week 1, that weekend, the following week, the following weekend, and then Monday he'll return, and he'll go to like Tahoe, or he'll go to like Big Sur, or he'll go somewhere else and like work remotely. And every single one of those times, he said, is an inflection point for his company. And Bill Gates used to do this. And like, you know, another friend of mine, Sarah, is, I think, suggested that like I take, you know, at least one day a week of like as a creative day, and maybe not one day, maybe like a 4 or 5 hour walk. You know, just time on my own to like get into creative space, and like just spend. It was my friend Carson, and he recommended this book. I think it was like The Way of the Artist or something like that. I don't remember, yeah, I definitely try to pollinate my thinking with, so I talked a lot about networking. So there's, like one of the most important things I think you can do is, networking I think is a tripartite function. It's got, you know, not just meeting new people, which is like, you might call them like prospecting, or like just expanding your network in terms of the number of people you know, but, you know, another is sort of canvassing those people and asking them questions. And the third is like landscaping. So what I mean by that is, so, you know, I meet you, I ask you questions, and I try to get insights and understand like how you see the world. And then thirdly, as I have this whole like, you know, bunch of inputs that I'm coming in, I need to like put it into a picture. Like, here are the mountains, here's the river, here's the forest, here are the valleys, like here's the ocean, and like beyond here there be dragons, right? Like I need to have a understanding of how the world works and like how it all fits together. And the economy is this miracle of like, you know, hundreds of millions, billions of people all operating with their own self-interest, and yet it all fits together somehow. So, you know, I know a lot of startup founders. So I love meeting more startup founders, but if I know a lot of them, every incremental one that I meet isn't giving me that much more new data. But if I'm like on a bus going from JFK to Manhattan and I'm sitting next to a Franciscan priest, right? That's interesting. This is a whole other world that I just don't understand, but that will give me a better appreciation for how the world works and may have unintended, unexpected value down the road. You never know when you need to like speak to the Vatican, right? Like who knows? Or like, you know, somebody who owns a brick and mortar business. Like I met with a friend of mine who's like running a food truck here in San Francisco called Bacon, right? So like, that's interesting. That's a super different business than a startup. What are the problems he's dealing with? Like blah, blah, blah. I think being like really intellectually curious is important. And that's not just with learning from people and experiences, but also I advise a lot of startups. There's all these like random meetings that come into your life that have no point per se, and you should take them, but you should take them in an organized way. So I've started to like block 2 days a week, one for coffees and one for, which I don't actually like taking coffee, I like going on walks or whatever, or getting tea. I'm really into tea. And then one day for like Google Hangouts that are like really fast, like 30-minute ones. And you know, the other 5 days a week, I can do other things with, but these are like opportunities for these things. And you know, in advising startups, I end up having like, I'm able to get data points that I'm not normally able to get. So for example, you know, I'm able to know your metrics look like this, mine looks like this, that's interesting. Here's what I've learned from my metrics, that's useful to them, and I'm also getting some value out of it. You know, here's this person, you know, I don't know them, you know, but like here are these 5 or 10 people I know, and like these, you know, having founders help each other is really helpful. You know, I was on this call this week helping a startup negotiate a partnership with a company, and that was a type of negotiation I just would never have had with Everest. That was like useful for my own personal business maturity and like experience. It was really fascinating. So I don't know if I think that, you know, the thing there is like spread out, right? And like do this intellectually too. Try to have lots of books and like go to art galleries and like try to like pollinate yourself like a bee and like bring all these influences together. Because what will kill you is the unknown unknowns, right? Like Socrates said, wisdom is knowing what you don't know. Because what you don't know can like really mess you up, right? It's like the blind spot when you're driving and you turn and there's an accident and you're dead, right? And as a startup, I know the problems I'm dealing with, right? And if I get tunnel vision around those, like, you know, the nice thing is that they're the devils you know, right? They're the things I know that are problems, but like, I don't want to get sidelined by like this thing I don't know is a problem. But it is a problem, and it could be something to do with me. Like, I wrote this blog post about parallax, which is what your eyes do. So you have 2 eyes which have 2 separate cones of vision, right? But your mind doesn't see 2 different cones of vision. It sees like one unified field of vision. And your mind is doing math and processing it, and you don't even notice it, but it's one unified field of vision. Well, I think it's sort of like that for the individual. You're like this person, and there's like people around you who are all looking at you and perceiving you, right? And perceiving the situation. So think about your company like this, and there's the people that are looking at your company from the outside. So getting really good at like tapping different people and getting a sense of what their cone of vision is, and then using, you know, being good at like weighting these things and like doing the math in your head and like sort of figuring out where you actually stand is important. And I think you can weight too much what other people think. It's important to sort of have this element to your personality, just like I don't care what other people think, the process of like getting these inputs. And so the original prompt was around organization, and this is, we've strayed a little bit far from organization, but actually this is all organization. Like, your creative and organizational processes are these habits that you have that end up, really defining how effective you are and who you are and how you operate. For example, I've been observing this pattern for the last couple of years where I tend to be very momentum-based productivity, where I'll do all the small tasks, and then I'll go to the medium task, and then I'll go to large tasks, because I feel like I'm able to ramp my momentum, and so I tend to deal with like the most important things last, which is somewhat dangerous. It works for me. I find it really hard to they call it swallowing the frog. I find it really hard to do like swallow the frog, like right away and do like a really hard thing, while there's this whole stack of smaller things that are because when I get the smaller things out of the way, I can focus. But sometimes I know that I need to reverse that and do the other thing. I think being self-aware is pretty critical, and these other people help you be self-aware.